This is the hardest challenge ontologically possible ever possibly done Minecraft. This mod pack is known as the Garden of Grind, which begins in this disconsolate nihility. The final goal is to somehow build the Stargate starting with absolutely nothing, which is so traumatizing to accomplish that the only surviving Stargate obtainers in 2024 have died to anti-GregTech cyber warfare. This audio-visual presentation contains all types of conflicts seen in literature. Man versus nature, man versus society, man versus technology, man versus author, and man versus self. Garden of Grind was actually impossible. At first this may seem true, but that was until it was false. I could destroy myself for socio-economic gain. Dying in GTN each spawns free tombstones and dirt for me for free out of thin air. Then we perform the I go by lots of names duplication glitch by pressing the respawn button, to get infinite dirt from infinite dying from infinite me, and this shall be used to build the foundations of our gaming headquarters. After dying 21 times, the dirt age has commenced. With this, the main goal for the beginning of skyblock is usually wood, but since we have no starting materials, all we had to do was to exactly copy Martin Sidopant's gameplay, which entails making a few quadrillion mob farms to get everything we need. There was just one thing stopping us though. As I was establishing the first mob grinder, I was refractorily introduced to the ultra-Hungarian Spitfire skeleton of breathlessness, bulwark, regeneration, berserk, exhaust, quicksand, sapper, choke, darkness, wither. These randomly generated mini-bosses are sponsored by infernal mobs. Mobs are psychotically Herculean in GTNH, transforming my base into the most dangerous neighborhood in America. Fact check true. And soon enough, what seemed like an easy mob farm would turn into reverse mob farming. After being extirpated by war criminals using weapons of mass destruction, I realized that this was not an ordinary skyblock challenge. I must use genius exploitation of seemingly useless mods and information to get as many advantages as possible to push 0.1% ahead. And as it turns out, I was holding one this entire time. Whenever I die, I drop human flesh, and it appears that all items are now technically blocks thanks to draconic evolution, which adds a keybind that places items in the world. Mobs cannot spawn on blocks that are not entirely solid. This information shall be used to ban mobs from this beacon of civilization. However, the more I pushed this item placing technology, the more overpowered it became. Inventory issues were solved because the entire world is one inventory. Dirt was now inefficacious because I could combine sideways and bottom item placing to scaffold wherever I needed. But after further scientific research, it was found that these items have blast resistance. This ignores most damage caused by the orbital kinetic bombardments caused by infernal mobs. Some of you may be wondering why I'm not deleting these death beacons. It's because GTNH has hardcore darkness. Everything at night becomes chemically pure vantablack. But these beacons allow me to see things within the total darkness. With these new technologies, I could return to the original goal. Mob farming. It was clear that I would need to build a maximum security mob farm, a technique pioneered in the 1940s, and this was my idea. I discovered that my graves were the birthplace of the aforementioned overpowered skeletons. Out of all these skeletons I only cared about craft skeletons, because they drop craft treasures, and these treasures can be opened for golden apples. To deal with all the worthless normal skeletons, I will fall into the void to effortlessly despawn all hostile mobs. This doesn't destroy any items because my inventory is copied and pasted back into gravestones to demolish to reverse lose everything. But how many of these craft loot bags do I need? The probability of unboxing golden apples is undisclosed by the ST abstract T interface code. So after indeterminate days of grinding, I stopped at 62 loot bags since I was quickly becoming dyspeptic. But technically, These 62 loot bags could become replacement inaccessible infinity loot bags. Here's the math. I copied the world file multitudinous times, so if I didn't get 2 golden apples, I shall simply re-roll on the next save. This was hyper-gambling. Gambling with a 100% success rate, also known as employment. The only issue is that copying was taking astoundingly long due to the megabytes of data created by the thousands of deaths I had in this world. That was until all deaths suddenly died, leaving me in the dark night. Now I was unable to see my profits until daytime. But one day, I got not just 2 golden apples, but 3. God! This came with a byproduct of kilotons of emeralds, which shall be used in Phase 3 of Part 5 of this plan. I needed a new species of mobs, zombie villagers and witches. Both of these and the golden apple are blah 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 into wood. If you don't know how that is possible in Skyblock, then you must watch until the end for the insane genius Skygoplex IQ play. These 2 mobs shall be obtained with this new mob spawning containment facility. Random mobs will spawn in these boxes, to be farmed manually, while useless specimen are disposed. But as it turns out, this mob farm would also be an equipment farm and bucket farm and gravel farm thanks to all the new species of mobs added by GTNH. Now I shall continue spawning mobs until I obtain the entity jackpot. After hundreds of mobs, I owned 1 witch and several zombie villagers entombed in various locations. Now I could perform the villager cure. These witches are weaponized to affect the zombie with potions of weakness. This combined with golden apples shall transmogrify the zombie villager into a villager. The result is that they will obtain a random profession, which is why I concocted even more world copies to gamble with the zombie villager to obtain the lumberjack professional. In alternate reality New World Copy 3 copy. Now I will weaponize the witch to cure the second zombie villager. Everything was going according to plan until he breached containment. But sometimes you have to play the fool, to fool the fool who thinks they are fooling you. With 2 villagers, the goal of the mob containment facility was accomplished. Therefore this shall be renovated into a villager trading zone, and the first socio-economical trade is buying the oak sapling from the lumberjack. Finally, after tens of hours, the wood age of civilization has commenced. This arrived with the invention of apples, but eating was useless because I was going to get hungry again anyways, so dying was more economical. But why doesn't I go by lots of names? Use bone meal to make things bajillions faster, because most normal items have been gregified by while progress in Minecraft is measured by amounts of mining and crafting accomplished, progression in GregTech is unsurprisingly measured by tech, which is measured by machinery. At a certain point the question is not what you can make in Skyblock, but how much you have to make. Getting wooden doors somehow requires 18 iron, and I needed doors for the next part of my plan involving these 2 villagers. Iron originates from killing zombies, so it was time to dust off this Kusanagi no Tsurugi I got from this nuclear waste dump. But these iron swords would be replaced by my new invention, the bone matter. Scientists have promulgated a way to mass-produce weapons from just bones. This is because GregTech has everything of everything: magnetohydrodynamically constrained star matter signs, white dwarf turbine blade extrusion molds, and bone weapons. All I needed were blueprints to create tool parts out of any material, and assemble them together on this tool station for my free bone mattock with 6 damage. Usage of these tools would also induce the leveling up of aforementioned tool, allowing us to invest in it for mind-boggling upgrades. I do not care if it's not the most uber-optimized early-game non-GMO gluten-free setup. If I wanted someone else to play the game for me I would have just watched YouTube instead. Now that I had free weaponry, I shall construct the new mob grinder to farm gigabajillions of zombies for iron. I experimented with various mob farm designs, but they all collapsed due to at least one type of pro-god hacker mobs, fly hacking god pro hacker creepers, teleporting enderman creepers, lightning summoning creepers, quadriplegic paralysis inducing spiders, skeletons spontaneously acquiring invincibility due to extremely buggy hitboxes, and zombies with triple the with their health. I inevitably came to the conclusion that I needed maximum isolation from all mobs. The result was Mob Farm TI-84B103 Revision B. This is essentially a spawn platform encased in a hollow dirt casing covering it with total darkness, with water underneath to funnel everybody into this tube, causing severe fall injuries, allowing me to kill everybody from behind this very small hole, ensuring maximum possible isolation. But where did this water originate? The answer is the drowning creeper, which also comes with free cobblestone. The idea was to manually flush all the mobs that spawned using water, but it appears the mobs were flushing the mobs. Hostile mob spawns were so ridiculously buffed that the flood of mobs essentially became the water. Drops are then collected by abusing broken item pickup mechanics. Items and experience can phase through corners. The mob farm was now completed, and these are the things that soon followed. There were 5 minutes of gaming per 25 minutes of apocalyptic scenarios. The mob farm was inadvertently replaced by the entire Arizonian water supply. This was too costly to fix, so I shall simply leave the mob farm aquarium themed. This was miraculously working, but then, the unthinkable happened. A second detonation has hit the funnel, wiping out the foundations despite the blast protection of water. Whatever was occurring in the aquarium was now beyond me. The water supply has declared independence and was now its own separate ethnic state, so it was time to reform the farm at the middle of the funnel. But then, the mobs went too far with their disgusting actions. They began crashing the game. The world froze almost immediately after opening it. After hours of infinite crashes and basically everything being useless, the terrorist has been found. The Crazy Pants Ender Zoo confusion effect. Therefore I must simply delete Ender Zoo. But this action bowdlerized my ability to even reach the main menu of GTNH. I have triggered what is essentially the GTNH anti-cheat. Any changes made to the game shall bring forth self-destruction. I must now close the game without F4, but GTNH developers have outsmarted us by coding it so that you must confirm closing the game, a confirmation that does not even appear due to full screen being enabled. But I had a new plan to reverse the world corruption. I logged into my SwagX Dragon Slayer YouTube 46 GitHub account to infiltrate the GTNH repository, and click Issues tab to find that there were literally tens of thousands of bug reports. All of these were responded to by cricketnoise.mp3, because the developers have absconded to view Hololive. After failing to solve the problem for the 5 trigentillionth time, I was left with no choice but to cause a mass progress extinction event due to modern programming incompetence. And the lesson I have learned is to enlarge the backup frequency to semi-minutely backups, bringing it to septingenti daily backups, or I cost a pentamiriacus pentasesculize centesime yearly backups. Fast forward several hours, and I reverse lost everything. The side effect is I now had the iron needed to create wooden doors. This complicated technology required these new high-tech UHD gold tools with kilo durabilities, but I was obfuscated to find that durability loss was outingentesimal somehow, effectively making this shorter-lived than the shortest-lived thing, which is now the shorter-lived thing. After painstakingly grinding iron for several more hours, I obtained actual real iron tools to transform these iron ingots into iron rods into rings and bolts for screws and sawed wood into slabs and sticks plus flint for trapdoors plus a screwdriver and saw to obtain the doors. Finally, after building an entire mob farm and suffering several man-made disasters, I could craft doors just to create a villager farm. The sociological logic is that Minecraft villagers shall breed when they detect nearby houses, but we could physiologically trick them into thinking civilization exists, using doors because Minecraft housing calculations only care about doors. It appears that a new favorite position besides CEO has been invented, the Schwarzschild wormhole position. All villagers are exported to this utopian processing facility, to acquire several new trades from new villagers. The result is that the first villager has survived 100 days in the void. It was now time to go AFK for the villager mass production to continue, and this was the incredible loot after one night of AFK. After the great villager game crash rebellion of 2024, I have returned to find that we have obtained an apothecary villager selling clay. But why do we need clay? As I was scouring through megabytes of mildly useful information in GTNH, I stumbled upon hyper game-changing ultra information. Experience could be traded to buy resources. The method is that buckets of XP can be crafted into metallic and substantial substances, but subsection A paragraph 8 clause 5 states that filling buckets with experience requires a drain to metamorphose experience into liquid, and a seared tank to store the drained experience, which necessitates clay, which I had. But how do I obtain sand and gravel? The verified fact-checked answer is hammering cobblestone from the remains of the water creeper Hyper Death. But this is not cobblestone, it was monster stone eggs summoning elite paramilitary tactical silverfish forces of pipe bombed skinwalkers and armored SWAT Payday 2 bulldozers. After fighting the entire Brazilian National Army to get cobblestone to crush into gravel and sand, I could finally construct the grout to shape into prisms to cook into bricks to construct into the third tank. Extra iron shall be transformed into the XP drain. Now that experience liquefaction was real, I could now easily buy iron dust to smelt into real iron ingots. This was beyond exponentially faster. It was titration hyper-operationally faster. The villager farm had served its purpose, therefore there was no socio-economic impact when all villagers were all promptly executed during a fiery explosion green screen at the hands of elite paramilitary Paraguayan hitmen. Now I could focus on industrialization. With this newfound experience, I purchased 62 iron and 27 of these mucilaginous orbs. This will be assembled into water tank sidings to be assembled into a water tank, which shall collect imaginary water using advanced quantum Schrödinger water technology. With this newfound water technology, I could now boil this into steam, thus unlocking the first technological age, the steam age, which comes with the first machines. But the action of boiling requires the equipment of bronze boilers. After purchasing several bronze armamentariums, I manufactured the coal boiler, which shall be fueled with even more bought substances. After plugging in the infinite water supply, the boiler was now undergoing boiling. But steam is useless without things to consume steam. This steam consumer came in the form of the steam macerator. I have now unlocked thousands of new potential industrialization actions. This includes crushing iron accoutrements from the mob farm for even more iron. Even more iron was used to sponsor this advanced anvil technology, to repair damaged appurtenances to macerate for even more iron. But the invention of water has also unlocked something even more gaming. Agriculture. Potatoes and mushrooms from mob farming could be planted. But why was there a suspiciously empty tile suspiciously in between these two crops? This is due to the existence of crossbreeding. Crops doing a genetic battle royale over the same tile shall convoke new species of useful materials. But as usual, things could go impossibly wrong with something as simple as farming. Because of weeds, they manifest on empty farmland, consuming all crops in the multiverse when not exterminated. This meant AF King would lead to catastrophe since I must now babysit the agricultural sector. Gaming was now somehow more boring than going outside, but 16cm resolution synthetic aperture radar footage reveals ender creepers had pop bob levels of griefing intelligence. But I was one step ahead and protected crops with human flesh security. But as it turns out, I was one step behind in reality. When the agricultural sector was not collapsing every picosecond, productivity was tenfolded from 0 to 10. Raspberries, cotton, melons, strawberries, max tomatoes, lemons, and but none of these were the sugar cane species, which was currently of utmost imperativeness. So any new species shall be harvested once for documentation purposes, before being demolished to make way for new crops. After redacted generations of plants, sugar cane was formed from mushrooms and potatoes, a 0.5% occurrence. This was only one of the 8 quintillion new crops I needed. Phase 7 of Part 3 of my plan was to begin collecting quest rewards. This mod pack comes with a quest line. Players are told to do various completely useless tasks to get paid anyways, and the method of payment was digital-grade cryptocurrency. After claiming several beginning quest rewards, I unlocked the coin shop. I could simply buy jungle saplings without having to do anything interesting to obtain it. This was necessitated to obtain the phytogeographical exemplification known as vines, which shall be harvested with sheared which needed iron screws and rings, iron plates and 3 different tools. These vines shall be crossbreeded with the infamous pumpkin species, to obtain the omega RNG drop of hemp for 1% chance. The next step was combining sugar cane and hemp to procure stickweed, a rather infamous decision. The final goal of all this experimental agriculture was to amalgamate the ultimate life form, Essence-berries. This shall provide me with volumes of liquid experience rivaling the possible volume of the heliosphere inside the termination shock. But after doing a bit more research in the Discordian hood, I realized that agriculture was a massive waste of time. There was a much faster methodology to obtain Essence-berries. It was a reward for completing the quest of obtaining the bricked blast furnace, which was possibly by today's technological standards. But this requires completing all these quest prerequisites in the Stone Age, which was also rather easy. So it was time to commence the hyper grind, commence the hardest Minecraft time-lapse in time-lapse history. As time goes on, this so-called challenge begins to suffer pixel skyblockism. This was turning from skyblock to skyblock plus tons of materials originating from outside sources like the quest book, making the idea of skyblock utterly useless. This transition was solidified after finishing the grind of the past tens of hours, consummating the bricked blast furnace, and claiming the Essence-berries, which shall be planted in mass quantities. These berries not only tetrated XP production, but symmetric level index arithmetically multiplied XP production. I could now simply eat berries to obtain XP to purchase materials without the mob farm. But there was one substance my wealth and capital could not buy: steel. But this was solved by macerating chain armor from the mob farm to obtain small piles of steel. This can then be cooked in the conveniently recently obtained bricked blast furnace, taking an absurd 6 minutes per ingot. Leaving the furnace on constantly was highly recommended by 10 out of 10 gaming doctors. Steel was the primary ingredient needed to herald the next technological age, the low-voltage era, which also requires circuits. All circuit components were obtainable except for the vacuum tube, which requires a ball mold to shape the glass tubing. This mold is forged by casting technology, which is fueled by lava. Unlike normal skyblock, lava was actually possible without divine intervention. All I needed to do will be explained in this diagram. After endless research, I have concluded that my sanity has gone from approximately 0 to exactly 0. So before beginning the quest for lava, I shall first build the most famous modded structure, the Tinker's Smeltery, which will be needed for the ball mold for circuits for low voltage. The once intimidating amounts of resources needed were balanced out by my new solar masses of materials to easily make all of the bricks to make all of the blocks. But once again, this seemingly easy task was catastrophically postponed by a single impossible task. The smeltery requires a casting table, which requires a singular seared stone, which needed molten stone, which needed lava, which needed the squeezer, which needed tanks, which needed clear glass, which came from the quest of getting the smeltery, including the table which needed seared stone. But in this time of dire desideratum, it came to me in a dream that villages themselves were the solution. Villages had smelteries which had casting tables. And just because it was the void, doesn't mean villages cannot be constructed. Upon realizing this, my face in real life slowly transformed into the face known as the troll face. After wandering this disconsolate nihility for Hyperions unforetold, I finally found society. But of course, it appears this village was currently in a hyper war somehow. Arrows were whizzing from behind the fortifications. So I discreetly infiltrated the compound walls. There it was, the casting table. I was about to breach the target, when I noticed that nightfall was expeditiously approaching. I used this to my advantage by stealthily moving in the darkness and stealing the casting table. Now I was surrounded by hostile mobs. I was advised to disguise myself with local residents until 6 a.m. local time. It was now time to reach the extraction point. After expertly circumventing the PMC death squad units surveilling the areas for my presence, there were now only 2 men forestalling my freedom: a spider who foolishly jumped off the fortifications, and this gravity creeper, which I was simply going to hit off the...
Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather to honor and remember someone who was more than just a name or a figure in our lives. We gather to celebrate the life of a beloved individual, Casting Table. Casting Table was not just a person, but a symbol of collaboration, creativity, and camaraderie. Though he may no longer be with us in the physical sense, Casting Table's spirit will continue to inspire us. He has left an indelible mark on our hearts and on our community, reminding us to always strive for excellence, to value each other, and to never lose sight of the importance of coming together. Rest in peace, dear friend.
The result of this tragedy was that I had to spend 1 more hour simply to retrieve the table from my grave and return home. With the smeltery completed, it was time to obtain lava to fuel the smeltery. The lava peregrination begins with craft gameplay, which begins with WAD technology. This would usually begin with technology, but after digging through several obscure documents of esoteric knowledge, it was discovered that professional heretic villagers could simply sell me wands, in the form of the profaned wand. So the villager farm has been rebuilt in all its former glory and deadly overpopulation just for this purpose. The second purpose was to obtain books from this merchant villager. But why doesn't I go by lots of names, simply craft books? Thankfully, crafting a bookshelf was easier. The profane wand is then used to engender the bookshelf into the Thaumonomicon. Now I could open the Thaumonomicon and click various ideas on the craft research tree to write down the idea, or something. These writing utensils were humorously harder to obtain due to me getting stuck on making a single eraser. Anyway, the goal was to research the craft lazuli agricultural species, which was currently our only source of lapis. But this so-called research was basically infinite craft in Minecraft. We begin with 6 foundational elements and must combine them in various ways to unlock new societal constructs. The puzzle was to link these two elements with related elements. However, this test of intelligence was made useless due to this diagram I found conveniently revealing all possible combinations. But consequences have actions. I was copying everything when I noticed that the imaginary teachers had changed the tests by removing some possible paths. I was about to counter-troll the trolls when I catastrophically ran out of starter aspects.
But then, the unthinkable happened. Out of nowhere, Top Bob logged in at the final link and reconnected it. Jared finally had a path to the lands. This is the first time that
This miracle was sponsored by the bonus point mechanic. I was supposedly inspired by nearby cobblestone, giving me the remaining elements I needed to complete the Lazolia research. With this, the recipe for Lazolia was unlocked by society, revealing that we must immerse seeds in 3 hand emojis and 12 owl emojis in a crucible for Lazolia. But what the f does this even mean? After doing further research, I determined the next course of action. I would revisit the villager society to purchase glowstone from a heretic villager. I then manufactured a cauldron and used the profaned wand on it to make the crucible. This shall be replenished with water and heated with fire charges from the mob farm to obtain a boiling state of matter. Glowstone and gold are then dissolved in it to obtain the blah blah icons in the recipe, followed by the seeds which absorb the blah 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 to become the prophesized Lazolia, which can then be grown into real lapis lazuli. This lapis was the final integrant needed for the object known as the clockwork engine, which also cost several marionette trenches of rubber and bronze and steel. But while I was processing everything, I noticed that water levels were suspiciously low in a boiler, and I was going to remedy this with water, when this happened. This was a small boiler explosion, but the aftermath was a large nuclear winter. But the damage to the base was less than the damage to Steve. I could simply consume essence or berries and rapidly purchase everything needed to repair all collateral damage. In order to support the recovery of this nation, please like and subscribe. We are approaching the critical mass at which there is a 50% probability where shocking evidence is released proving that I have done something absolutely disgusting a few months ago. This clockwork engine was our method of obtaining free electricity generator, not clickbait Punjabi subtitles. The only fuel needed was right-clicking. Now that I had free electricity before even unlocking the low-voltage age, I could extemporize the forestry centrifuge and the forestry squeezer, both of which consume minuscule plentitudes of energy to manufacture the inestimable lava. In reality, the creation of the squeezer was brobdingnaginally delayed by a singular piece of obsidian glass. Glass dust was obtainable, but obtaining glass blocks was apparently too technologically advanced. Luckily, I had unlocked the so-called automation quest tier 1 after completing the smeltery quest, allowing me to submit basic items to claim 16 clear glass, and I had to craft a realistic flint and steel to satisfy this other quest to get obsidian without lava, which is then grinded and smelted with glass for the obsidian glass. Anyways, this squeezer and centrifuge required an object known as the simmering comb to produce lava. Thus begins the second part of my journey to obtain lava. The generally accepted solution to obtain the simmering comb was to buy it from a forestry villager. But after doing some social experimentations, I calculated that the probability of this trade was too abysmally low. Thankfully, there was a more skill-based way to accomplish this. The simmering comb was generated by the queen known as the queen transmuting bee, which requires more infinite craft gameplay of combining basic bees through breeding. But how do we obtain bees in the first place? According to melitology, hives contain bees, and according to the coin shop contained hives. But after annihilating these hives to amass my bee collection, I realized I did not know what I was doing. How do I even breed bees? Research suggests I must mate a princess bee with a drone bee to acquire mutated children bees. This is only curable in an apiary, and according to this forestry villager trades contained an apiary. There was only one thing missing now. An indeterminate amount of time ago, I discovered that weeds create grass blocks when left alone for far too long. And as you may know, bone mealing grass relinquishes flowers. flowers were necessitated for bees in an apiary to actually do something. And now, they were actually doing something, which was very sadly decreasing their lifespan. But whenever the queen dies, the new princess and drones of various species are born, and they shall be breeded to prolong the cycle of experimentation. The actual process is more complicated, involving alleles and recessive genes and Punnett squares. But for the purposes of today's gaming, I shall simply throw in combinations of bees and pray for better bees. Unusual bees and forest bees create the common bee. Unusual bees and a common bee make cultivated bees. Unusual bees and the cultivated bees produce eldritch bees. Whenever gambling fails, I simply invested more cryptocurrencies for more hives for more chances at the species jackpot. Unusual bees and the eldritch bee formulate mutable bees. And finally, mutable bees and eldritch bees articulate transmuting bees. But now I shall introduce the untreated frame invention, an apiary upgrade that squeezes as much production ontologically possible out of bees. This transmuting bee had survived countless generations of natural selection just to slave away for corporate production. The result was the simmering comb. I began using my bare hands to power the clockwork engine, miraculously reaching the temperature of the sun, unsurprisingly killing me. But this heroic sacrifice produced enough electricity to centrifuge the simmering comb into phosphor to be squeezed with sand into lava. Finally, after 100 hours, lava was realized into reality, and the first thing I shall do is make a cobblestone generator after 100 hours. But more importantly, I could now fuel the smeltery. With the ability to melt substances in the smeltery, I purchased aluminum and copper to be deliquesced and subsequently alloyed into aluminum brass. This is outputted onto the casting table to form this blank isogonal dihedral quadrilateral, which is carved into this ball. Molten steel is then poured onto this ball to finally make the ball mold. I was now in the final stretch of making circuits and making electrical machines. The quantities of resources about to be consumed was likely to collapse a gravitational singularity according to Penrose-Hawkins singularity theorems. Macerated wooden pulp can be compressed into plain switches slided with diamond slime for coded circuit boards involve copper to be forward hammered and wire cut into wires to wrap the coded boards. Real circuit boards and line board cobblestones to forward hammered into be macerated into quartz sand to mix with crushed flint for glass dust to load the ball mold for empty vacuum tubes and volume more copper to be cut into various sizes of wires with chunk alloy lap steel to create real vacuum tubes. Meanwhile, I bought even more copper for copper wires to be combined with triturated charcoal and more diamond slime for resistors and purchased rubber to be processed and hammered into sheets wrapped around red alloy wires to assemble with the resistors and transistors and a steel plate in the circuit board to create a single circuit of the lowest tier, the first of gigabajillions we need. Then I bought more loopers, amounts of copper and tin and iron and rubber and redstone and hammered steel into plates and saw more iron to motives to be heated by precursor oil to raw iron and hammered more substances for various types of performance processes that I have already covered, so I can grab more motors and more loop pipes and rotors from plates and screws and rings and low voltage machine casings combined with raw iron and cables and steel from machine bolts. This was the culmination of 150 hours of technological advancement. The low-voltage steam turbine, a contraption that transubstantiates steam into electrical power, measured in voltage and amperage. I could now power low-voltage electric. I am currently experiencing the 5 stages of grief but without the first 3 stages and without acceptance. But there was a good side to this. With no power, comes no responsibility. I was now free. We shall now begin our interview. Run interrogation has been completed. In conclusion, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month should be extended by 3 months. But before leaving, I have decided to download all pertinent materials from this server before leaving. But wait, what is this?
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Oh my god, it actually worked. I am now in I Go By Lots of Names computer. I shall now hack his PC and steal Supersymmetry episode 2. But first I must kill the Igblo Defender Squad.
Scopers only. No scopers only.
Oh god!
Finally, I have located Igblo's computer. Time to watch Supersymmetry. Wait, what? He has not even begun editing episode 2. My reaction to this information is that I am utterly destroyed. After waiting for 10 trillion years, I have officially hit the point where unsubscribing seems like the only option.
Do not lose all hope. Maybe the real Supersymmetry this whole time was smashing the like and subscribe button and notification bell and leaving a comment.
Hello guys. After the tragic death of I Go By Lots of Names, I will be the substitute audio-visual narrator. You can call me I Went By Lots of Names. I would like to thank all loyal followers of the late I Go By Lots of Names for following this whole time. This concludes today's audio-visual presentation.